Okay. So first thing first, when we are developing, when us getting started with the project, the first thing comes to in our mind is okay, who is the author of the project, who is going to be doing all these things, and what sort of things that we should think when we are selecting a project. Okay, so what we will do is we will take care of those things in as we would do in a real world project. Okay, so let's assume that we were reached out by client. Okay, so the client comes, maybe they will physically meet. Sometimes we, if they are like living abroad or people who are from another country, what they would do is they would give us the requirement. Okay, so the initially they would most of the time they would sign something like uh, legal bound between us, whether the project is going or not. First thing that we most of the time project people will do is um, they will um, they will uh, give a legal bounding uh, with the company or the individual person that we are making a deal with. Okay, so the main thing when we are doing uh, um, the main thing that we are when we are doing is um, the application. uh, uh, they might not give you the whole information. Okay, they might not give you the whole scope of it. First they will go ahead with, okay, we'll be we'll be coming into a legal terms. Most of the time we call these as a non-disclosure agreement, NDAs. Okay, so this is quite common in software industry, that even though we have a project or we don't have a project, uh, we normally say, hey, we won't be discussing these things that we are about to do. Maybe the project is doable or not doable, whatever the reason, whatever the things that we are doing. What we're gonna not gonna do is we will not discuss these things. We will not be discussing these discussion that is going to happen is not going to be shared among any other party. Okay, if we do, we are violating a contract. Okay, that means say for instance, we got some initial design specs. Okay, it might be a new mobile application, it might be a new killer idea, something like that. Anyhow, whatever the things that we'll be discussing, we will not share with another third party unless we get the permission, like, okay, from the client. We will be requesting a letter, we would like to share this information with someone else. If they only allow it, we can share those information. Okay, otherwise, if you have NDA signed up, you can't share any information with another party, saying, okay, we collaborated with these guys, or we initially discussed some things. We have the original project proposal. No, those kind of things are not to be shared with anyone else. Okay. um, so whatever when we are doing, uh, we should not we should not um, expose those information to anyone else if we are under a NDA. Okay, so make sure, if you are asking for a project, if the client is coming for a project, uh, first ask, okay, before we get started, you guys have any NDAs or non-disclosure agreement, if yourself you have some information that you don't want the public to know, you should propose an NDA with the client. Okay, that is like really happening because most of the time client have the requirement. Client has the proprietary information, some non-shareable information on that scenario. So uh, it's highly likely an NDA would come from the client end. So uh, in any case, just ask for signing to an NDA, where we know that for sure um, nobody is violating anything within the contract. Okay, so make sure we come up with something like the NDA, so we know for sure that we are not violating any legal terms. Okay, so that is something everybody should be focusing when we are initially working with the client. Okay, the next thing that we should do is um, once the NDA is in place, we should have initial discussions with the client. Initial discussion in the sense we should get an idea what sort of project is they are proposing, whether that project is doable within our capabilities. That means we are going to do a feasibility study. Then most of the time, the user, if the user is very organized, they will have something called a documentation or an pitch, idea pitch, that's kind of information. So they won't be like rambling against their head. They will have much more detailed information. They will have like, okay, certain technologies that they would like to use. That's kind of restrictions, if there are any, they would represent. For example, a client might be coming and asking, okay, I need to develop an application which we should be having um, um, which should run on iOS devices. Okay, so basically from the developer side, we can think, okay, the client is asking for a native iOS application. Okay, but all along the way, they might say, oh, yes, this is working on iOS and Android. Okay, so they might think that okay, when you are developing an application for iOS, that is basically working on Android as well. Okay, so all of those discussions, okay, before we dig deep into developing the application, we should finalize it first. Okay, then we should ask, hold on, you mentioned that you want to develop um, an application which is running on iOS, but you mentioned right now that you want to run it in Android as well. So if our understanding is clear, or our understanding is correct, um, the application that you are mentioning is supposed to run on both of these platforms. Okay, if we are running these in both of platforms, then we are not talking about a native iOS application. We are talking about either two applications, or we are talking about a hybrid application. Okay, so those kind of information should be within us. We should be able to um, say, okay, user might say something, they might not understand at first what the requirement is. They might think uh, most of the time they are coming to third party or a software development due to lack of technology knowledge. Okay, so if they don't have specific information about what are the technologies, those kind of things, so they might have a little bit of gap in there. So we need to fill it in, saying, okay, it is not how it is, how it's supposed to work. There are a few things that we need to know, and we should explain those things to the client. Um, as they would oftenly get confused on some matters over when we are working in the application, initial application, initial application development process. Okay, so make sure um, we get that information. We create we know that information is within the client itself, and the client understand everything that we are saying. Okay, so make sure that that is there. That is the first thing, understanding the client requirement. Okay, the next thing that we would do is the next thing that we would do is we need to make sure um, the first thing next thing that we need to do is once the application generation sorry once the requirement gathering is done, we should run through it again, okay, once again, saying, okay, this is the requirement. So is that correct? We should always validate the requirement from the user's end, okay? Sometimes users get some idea in their head. We might interpret it something else. That's reasonably can happen to anyone, okay? Anyone within an organization, they might have a legitimately different understanding on what's going on. Okay, so always make sure you guys take the requirement and go once again with it. Okay, so that is like the hardest part. So you will be surprised how many things that uh, as developers we get wrong, and as clients or the requirement providers, they give us. Okay, so that's typical, that is expected, because if they know everything, they won't be coming for us for help, asking how we're going to do that. So that is one thing. The next thing that we need to do is, once we get those things, uh, most of the time, if you are a good developer, the information that you have gathered should be at this point um, what we call should be documented. Okay, so if you haven't documented these things, then you will be having hard time to uh, uh, you will be having hard time on making sure that you're making sure that that is the correct one, or you need to keep a track on those things. So it's going to be hard. So uh, as what we will see um, in a professional application, all these things should be written down, and everything should be perfectly organized and formatted, and presented to the client itself. Okay, then the client.
What thing? Project management can?
Sorry. So the client would know what's going on, and once the client is aware of these changes, once everything is documented, in a sense, what will happen is um, we can present them the document saying, okay, um, this is the document that we have prepared, and this document contains everything. Are you aware of these things? Is this the correct requirement that we need? Okay. So most of the time, client would say, yes, we would be like happy to help with these things, or we will accept these things. Uh, uh, Um, so this is gonna be a really easy thing. Getting the acceptance, they might say, okay, this is the requirement. Then the fun part begins. We should, I mean, the requirement gathering and all those things. Sometimes we might involve a few people from development as well. Sometimes this is a role of a BA, business analyst. Okay, so initially the BA would do this system gathering, talking with the client and everything. So the BA person, business analysis person, have a good knowledge on what's going on, what's gonna be feasible or not. Okay, so the BA, business analysis in this case, they have the idea of, okay, this is doable or this is not doable. So a business analyst is a person who is also knows technicality, technicalities and technical difficulties. Okay, he or she might need not to know everything about implementation, but by looking at a requirement, they should be able to say, okay, um, this application would take this amount of users, this amount of developers, this amount of hours, and these are the technologies that we're going to use. But they do not need to know exact coding terms, programming syntax, database migrations, database designing, all those things. They don't need to worry, but they have an idea. This is doable within these languages, or this is doable within the company capabilities, this kind of thing. So business analyst is one of the person who is going to be doing these initial things that we have discussed. Then what will happen is normally the BA say, okay, we will come up with an estimation on this. Okay, we will estimate this. Then we should say, okay, the system requirement is there. We have finalized everything. The user, the client has accepted. This is the requirement. Then we, as an organization, we will come up with an estimation. So how much effort it would take this project to be implemented. That is like the costing part, if you can remember. So everything in the trade-off with the software development, if you guys can remember, there were few things that we need to consider. That is the software cost that it would take. So in this scenario, what will happen is what would that happen is the user in this scenario is no longer going to be interacting with the business analysis. We have freezed everything. You have given the requirement. Now based on this, we would say, okay, this task take this amount of time and this amount of developers, and the effort is this much, and we will come up with a cost for the section. Likewise, we will go through all of these application and give a time estimation as well as a cost estimation for completing the task. So altogether, when we have all those information, we will come across what we call estimation, cost estimation for the project itself. Then we can say, okay, we have this project. Within this project, for these tasks, we need X amount of developers, we need X amount of testers, and we need X amount of other resources, project managers, and such. And the next thing that we need to do is uh, we need to make the resource availability, and we need to check, okay, this is doable within our context. We have all the developers, and this is the amount of hours that we will go through. So this is like a rough estimation. We should say, okay, this might change a little bit based on few things. Okay, especially if the client gives if the client requirements, sometimes they're not finalized on certain things. Okay, there are certain things client would say, okay, we need to discuss that on the go. So we can't explicitly say the requirement. Sometimes that happens. Okay, there are some uncertainty within the client itself. So the client might need not give the full requirement in that scenario, or they might pass the ball and say, okay, you come up with a good solution on this. Okay, give us from your experience what is the best solution. This kind of thing will happen. So in a scenario like that, what will happen is we can say, okay, since we have a gray area on this requirement, we can't explicitly say how much time that would take, but roughly this amount of hours, this amount of developers. It's like a rough ball pass on from our end as well. So altogether, what we can come up with is a rough estimation. Most of the time, this estimation is like considered what we can consider a sign off for the agreement. Okay, we need to come to a legal agreement once we have some requirement like this. Give me a second, guys. Okay, sorry. So next thing that we need to do, we give the estimation to the client. Then client would say, okay, depending on the management or depending who are doing the business, um, they might agree. Okay, let's do this. We will pay this amount of money for completion of this project, and probably if they agree with that, they would go with something like an advance money. Okay, saying, okay, we will accept your offer, and we would like to see you guys starting on it. They might give advance, or sometimes the initial payment based on trust. Okay, if there is a trust between the client and the user, um, they might say, okay, we will offer you some compensation after these features are, or initial some milestone has been achieved. Okay, you guys can remember milestones. Okay, we achieve some point of the software development. Once this milestone is achieved, we will give you money. That's kind of information is going to be there. So we need to make sure those things are in order as well, because ultimately you can't run a charity if you are working with a real life situation. You guys need money to operate. Okay, so somewhere somebody has to pay. So those information, those payments and everything is in order. Then is where we normally consider a project starting position. Okay, so we assume that all of those things that we discussed earlier has been completed. Now we are in a stage where client has agreed to the requirement, client has given all the information that we need, and the client is willing to pay, and all those things are in order. Now the project, what we call is project is secured. So the project is secured. Now what we need to do is um, we need to once we secure the project, we need to initiate this project in our organization. So we need to get start working on it. Okay, give me a second. Okay. So next thing that we need to do is once everything is signed off and everything is done, we come to a place where we discuss the requirement most of the time. Sorry, most of the time when we when we are talking about discussion, we would probably um, go with something like uh, give a second. We would go something like a design for the application. Uh, so the uh, so the main thing that we need to worry about, if depending on the project itself, they might have different they might have different idea, or they might have different uh, uh, different perspectives on the project is. Okay, so sometimes users, if they have a certain website to be designed, they might come up with a user design for that website. Okay, so they will say, okay, we need this website to be looking like this, as we discussed on the initial press. Then we can give them, okay, what we call a working prototype. Okay, sometimes these things are like commonly happening. We will give a common, we will give a design to the user. Okay, we will be giving um, the solution based on this design. Okay, it is not the properly implemented version, but something that's visualize the user. Okay, this is gonna be looking like this. Okay, this application would have these kind of features. That's kind of a message will be given. Okay, so in order to get a visualization, you guys might know some terms that we use, the visual uh, visual design. In this scenario, we would call these things like what we call the UX UI design, or we call the design, the initial design, as a mock-up, or sometimes we call very basic version as a wireframe. Okay, whatever the whatever that we visualize to the user is something that we need to come up to the end user. Okay, so the end user would know, okay, our application would be something like this. Okay, we will be seeing something like this at the end. So the visualization part is one of the steps when we are signing off with the client. Okay, we say, okay, client, here's the design, or here's the requirement that we have come across. They have approved that, they have validated that. Then we can consider, okay, we have a working UX design or a project sketch with us. So we have this sketch with us. What we're gonna do is uh, we will be looking at that sketch, and um, we will be um, implementing those information based on the sketch provided. Okay, so uh, the BA, the business analysis, developers, UI UX designers, the whole project, sorry, the whole team who is involved in this project will get together and sit down and say, hey, we got a new project, and the project is from this client, and they will give one basic idea. Okay, it's gonna be this kind of system. So if it is like, let's say, okay, the client is asking for a school management system, then we can come across, okay, this is a school management system that we need to build. So in case like we have the basic idea of it, what we need to do is we need to make sure that when we develop the application, when we are developing the application, here's the timeline. We should be completing this task uh, by this year end, or in 6 months or 1 month. This is the most of the time the developers like put their hands on their head. Okay, that is impossible. That's like a normal reaction that I have seen all the time. Okay, the basic problem is the timeline. Okay, most of the developers are shocked to hear. Okay, but most of the time, if the deadline is fixed, then what we have to do is we have to improve. We have to get to more resources in, or we have to make sure the budget is within the budget. We cover the all the expenses and everything. If we need new developers, we need to get those people. If we need hardware, we need to get those things. So that those things will be happening. But right now, this is like the initial phase. So whoever is involved within the application uh, will be uh, will be taking um, will be taking turns, and will be looking at the design and figuring out, okay, this is doable within ourselves, whether it is our capabilities are in here, and those kind of thing. Okay. So in this scenario, what I'm gonna do is I will show you guys. I'm not sure why it is not showing in my machine. Um, Weird thing. Hope you guys can see my Safari. Uh, Chrome is not working for some reason. Not sure why. Okay, so this is one of the design that one of the developer, sorry, UIX designer uh, came to me and suggested, and with his permission, I'm sharing with you guys as well. So this is like a um, hotel booking and tourism involvement or something in between. Yeah, so that is like the basic idea of it. So we will take this as a case study for our use cases. So the basic idea, the client has pitched, okay, there are hotels, there are flights, there are rooms, flats, villas, whatever. So we will be listing those things in here. Okay. Once we have listed those things, um, we will have we'll have the most of the time uh, we will have the um, we'll have these information, so they will have a look and feel. Okay, it's based on these kind of frameworks. Oh, okay, we can make these things happen. You guys can see there are like carousels. There is normally a basic website in a sense. Okay, so everybody is happy. Okay, these kind of things are we have done. We can start working on this. So it's gonna be really simple in a sense. So what we need to do in this scenario, we will sit together and we will come to a planning place. Okay, the next thing is very important. We will be starting the planning. Okay, so most of the time when we start with the planning, we have to understand what are the things that we need to do within this by looking at this. Okay, if somebody says, okay, we'll be focusing on hotels first, that is the milestone for like next month. So we'll be completing hotels. How are we going to get started on these things? How are we going to make sure that we are coming to a place where we can list these hotels. Okay, so since this is like the initial price, okay, initial things need to be happen. So we need to know everything, every functional requirement of this website. Okay, this is a normal website. So within this website, what are the functional things that we need to see? Okay, by looking at the requirement given by the user and by simply looking at this UI, you guys can come up with functional requirements. So it is a duty of the user sometimes is to understand what's going on in here. Okay. So for example, I can see that within this UI, if I do not go anywhere else, within this UI, there are few functional requirements. I will give you an example, then you guys have to give me your ideas as well. So first thing that I would see is in here, there are a function is there for search your destination and your check-in and check-out date and how many people are checking in and search functionality. So basically by looking at this section, I can see that there is a requirement for searching places. Okay, in this scenario, hotels. You guys can see I'm in the hotel tabs in this scenario. So there is a requirement that I need to search hotels by a given destination. So for example, if I select Colombo and check in and check out date, how many adults, and if I search, so I should be able to search based on these queries. Okay, check in, take out date, and your destination. What are the available hotels? Okay, this is basically something that we can understand. Okay, so my understanding might be wrong. Okay, it's perfectly okay because something new. I can see, okay, there's a search hotel button, so we should be able to search such and such on a given destination. So we always need to verify on that. Most of the time, these will be documented by the BA. BA would give a comprehensive document in saying, okay, search destination would be this. Okay, we need to give a location, we need to give check-in, check-out time. Then we will be able to list everything that is out there. Okay, that is going to be documented. And if it is not documented, we can simply see, okay, we have this information that we need to work on. Okay, that's basic. Okay, by looking at this first screen, name at least one or two other requirements or functional requirements that you guys might think um, that is that should be within this website. So you guys have to give me few functional requirements by looking at this. Okay, consider only the hotel section. By looking at other things, by looking at this screen, by your experience, can you name few of the functional requirements that we might come across in this application? I mean, so we haven't started even, but when you're in the initial discussions, you by looking at this screen, you guys might see few functional requirements. So can you come to so you guys can chat or you can raise your hand and tell me what are the functional requirements that you see in here? Yes, go ahead. You can either chat or you can raise your hand and speak up. What are the functional requirements that you guys can see in here? Yes. What are the functional requirements that you see? Yes. Let's take some people out then. Hasita, what are the functional requirements that you see in this UI? Hey, Umesh, site should be able to search our destinations. Yeah, that is what I said. Yes, but I can accept that. What else? Thank you, Umesh. What about others? What are the other requirements that you see in here? So when you're becoming a software engineer, make sure you have these analytical skills. Okay, this is important. You don't expect like everything will be spoon fit for you. Okay, you need the analytical knowledge. Otherwise, you won't be. You can be a software engineer, but not a good one. Okay, in order to make good assumptions, in order to understand what's user intention is, that's take a little bit of skill as well as a lot of practice. So you guys should look at this and come up with functional requirements. Of course, this is something like really, really easy. So you should be come to a conclusion. Now, okay, these are the functional requirements that I see. Yes, Kaushalya, Kaushalya, Dimitra, Nandifa, you should be able to log into the website. Very good. Yes. The user should be able to log into the website. That is true because we have a functional requirement in here, login and register. Okay. So we user should be able to log in. That is one good requirement catch. Very good. What are the other things? Yes. Just look at this so you guys can understand. So this is very important. Why? When you are understanding a project, uh, you should know what are the features, what are the functional features that you will be working on. That's why I'm mentioning these things. Yes. What are the other things? Yes. Provide and hotel rooms and information. Yes. Since we have hotels in here and when we click the search button, yes, we should be able to provide hotels and so room information. Yes, correct. Yes, I need all of others inputs as well. So only like two students are incorporate others. Yes, please go ahead. Asita, Mashi, Piyumi, Vindhya, you guys can see these things, right? So If you can't spot something very small like this, I'm not sure how you're gonna look into a huge project. This is like very simple things, so it should be able to identify these things very easily. Yes. So yes, since it is taking time, I would discuss. So there are a few things that you can see in here. Okay. The first thing is you can see these ENUS. Uh, so ENUS become host. Yes, user should be able to become a host. Yes, there is a become host option here. Correct to Umesh again. Umesh again. So so we have identified few becoming a host. Okay, that means I am the service provider in this case. So that is one functional requirement. Login to the registry, that is another functional requirement. In here, you guys can see English US. That means we should be able to change the language. Okay, so this in this scenario we are in English United States, but we should be able to change that into some other language. And you should be able to change the currency. You guys can see that currently it is in USD. That means United States dollars. Okay, so we should be able to change the currency, and sorry, the whole program would change. Okay, the currency within the website would be not will be showing on different currencies that we have in here. So we should be able to change those things as well. See one option. Yes, searching and listing information. So those are the functional requirements that you see. If you can understand and identify functional requirements, then bravo, you did a good job. Okay. And once we see these things, the functional requirements, automatically there are things that we would be also need to implement in terms of non-functional requirements. Okay, so we need to think when we are estimating, when we are thinking about the application, there are non-functional requirements that is not visible in it. Okay, that's, you might say, everything that is functional, you can see, okay, become a host, login, register, search. Those are like functional requirements. Those easily can be Spotify and categorized, but there are things that you can't spot or you can't see at the beginning. Okay, those are the requirements. Those are here, but you can't see most of the time. So what are those things? What are the things that um, we can't see in here? So those things mainly considered as non-functional requirements. Let me give you an example. One non-functional requirement that we see here. Say for instance, this is a website, right? This website is working in good condition, but a non-functional requirement would be the loading time, the speed of this page rendering. Okay, how much time this page takes us to render. So the home page, if it is taking like 30 to 1 minute to render this page, then we are in a trouble. Why? Then one of the non-functional requirement, the speed, is not met. I'm not sure whether you guys know about these facts, but if a user don't see something for the first 3 seconds, there is a high chance the user will not come to your website ever again. Okay, they would like saying, okay, this page is not loading, I will go find somewhere else. So in a modern business world, okay, we should think about the loading time for these kind of pages. Unless otherwise we should show something like a loading screen or some sort of indication that the page is loading. That kind of information is crucial in a place like this. Okay, so what happens if you guys find yourself, okay, this is yes, this is showing us some this is showing something, but it takes 1 minute to load. That is unacceptable. Okay, so the one non-functional requirement, the speed, is not met. Okay, within our application we don't see the speed coming up. Okay, so that is one non-functional requirement. So what are the other non-functional requirements that you might think is important in here? So name a few, please. If you can raise your hand, you can say that, or if you are within the chat, let's chat. Let's have a chat on it. Okay. So I have named one, speed. What are the non-functional requirements that you would find within this website? Because functional requirement as well as non-functional requirements are like key factors when it is coming to estimation. Okay, you guys can see there are a lot of non-functional requirements out there, but given the scope of this website, there are few things that we might think, okay, these non-functional requirements are not that important. We do not need to think about these non-functional requirements. Those kind of things are there. So we need to make sure by looking at this screen, by looking at this screen, okay, there are these non-functional requirements that we should work on. Okay, you guys tell me what are the non-functional requirements that you guys see in here? Yes. Yes, what are the other non-functional requirements that you guys see in here? Speed, one of the things that I talked. What are the other things? So these things should be like coming to you guys without an effort. Yes. User login day to be show, user login details should be securely. Yes. So we are logging in here. That means we are logging into the website. So when we are logging into an application, so we can't everybody to be logging in, right? Unless the username and password is or any authentication mechanism is passed, we can't let any outsiders log into the system. So one non-functional requirement is security. Yes, very good. I think it is Nifla. Yes. So one non-functional requirement in here is security. Very good. So by looking at login, yes, you should say, okay, there's a login in here. So the users are going to be using this for login purposes. So we need to make sure user informations, everything is secure. Very good. Next one is easy to use and user friendliness. Yes, user friendliness, that is a non-functional requirement. If it is taking me 10 steps to find 10 steps to find a location, then there is something wrong within my application. Okay, so easy to use is something that we should be considering in this scenario. Very good. Yes, what are the other things? What are the other things? Yes, user friendliness is one. We should be able to navigate easily. We should be able to find everything easily. It shouldn't be like, rocket science to get into that. So easiness, that is something like, based on user preference. But yes, but majority, if majority can understand what's going on, then we can consider this as a user friendliness. What are the other non-functional requirements that you guys see here? We talk about speed, security, user friendliness. Yes. What are the other things that you would normally come across? Yes. One more thing. In these kind of systems, one other thing is very important is the accuracy. Okay. So the people that you using the system should be accurately getting the information. So for example, if I search destination and check in and check out and everything is done, okay, you see like, okay, we have opening, um, uh, or there is a place or destination that is available, but when you're trying to book it, it seems to be like really odd, because sometimes we will be booking on a very seasonal occasion. In that scenario, if it is not gonna work, then we are in big trouble. Okay, so in a scenario like that, we need to make sure that accuracy is one of the most concerning or most important thing in this application. Yes. What else? What else do we have in here? Uh, how fast system should respond to a request? Yeah, we can consider that is the speed. Yes, we talked about that. What else? What are the other things that we would find in here? Like we talk about speed, security, accuracy, user friendliness. Yes, what are the other things that you might find? So those are like non-functional requirements. So there are like a list of abilities in your plate. So you should be able to throw it in here. Yes. So one of the other thing that we need to think is the privacy. Okay. So you guys can see that there is user login and logout process. This kind of, that means multiple users will be accessing the system. Okay, there are different users who is accessing the system. So all of a sudden you can't look into others information. So if I log in as a user, then I should not be able to look into others people information. Okay, if I don't have the correct what do you call, the authorization, I should not be able to look into anyone else information. So that is like privacy policies, those kind of things. We should think about those things. Authorization, authentication, those kind of things are really important in this scenario. Okay, so we should be able to uh, work on those things as well. Okay, so we have seen some functional requirements, we have seen some non-functional requirements. So why we need to think about these things when we are starting a project? So these things come with a cost. Okay, every functionality, every non-functionality that we have, it's associated with a cost. It needs to be developed. Otherwise, what will happen is, if you think, for example, okay, there's a login, we do not think about user data uh, security in this scenario. What will happen? Okay, we are misplacing, we are using something really, we are doing something really uh, stupid thing, or we are not making sense to others. uh, we just ignored a non-functional requirement. Okay, since the functional non-functional requirement is not met, we are not making progress, we are not doing things it's supposed to do. Okay, so those kind of things will affect the system and the cost. And if you think, okay, we can fix this on a later version, then you will be in trouble. So that's kind of things, that's kind of mentality within you, within yourself, would give you a good information, good understanding of what's going on within the system. Okay, so you guys should be able to identify these functional requirement, non-functional requirement, and list them out. Most of the time, these functional requirements, yes, functional requirements are given by the user, identified by the business analysis, and there will be a lot of those things within our hand. But what most of the time we fail to capture is non-functional requirement, and how much time that we need to spend on those kind of things. Okay, so how we gonna propose those things in here, how we gonna make that happen? So by identify these non-functional requirement, what we can do is we can make the application. Okay, uh, so for implementing security, okay, you can't see the security things in here. Okay, it's not a functional requirement. For implementing security, for authorization and authentication, we need this amount of people. We need security experts, or sometimes we need professional application developers, like senior members, to implement such and such feature. So those kind of information, those kind of things will be added to the cost of the application. Okay, so make sure those non-functional requirements are also there within the system, and you are estimating those things. Okay, next thing that we will be doing is, we got all the functional requirements, all the non-functional requirements. It's within a document. We have a design in place. We have the team in place. Now we need to make sure we will be we'll be choosing a development method. Okay, we should select a development method. So you guys might have heard about software development methods, or software development uh, strategies, sometimes we call. Most of the time, you guys might have heard the terms like waterfall model, spiral model, those kind of things is like, what we learn most of the time. But in real life, when it is coming to a modern world in this scenario, those kind of things are like barely used. Okay, there are some organization which follows those kind of thing based on the project most of the time, but in the modern world, in the fast moving world, we have more interesting, more what do you call, more modern approaches to go with software development. So most of the time, we'll be using something like agile practices. Okay, we call these agile software development. So earlier days, we have software development methods like waterfall, spiral, but nowadays, 90% of the time or more, even for my, I'm not sure about you guys, but where I started my uh, software development career, it's always going to be in agile development mode. Okay, so in the modern world, agile is like uh, de facto for developing application. So this might change, okay, as it has been changing all over again and again within the advancement of systems, advancement of new technologies. Who knows? AI is coming. Uh, so we have AI integration into our applications. Who knows when new AI deployments are here, when AI is taking much of our work, there will be a new software development method. Okay, even now we have something like AI agents. Okay, the AI agents who will be doing the same thing. This kind of thing will happen in the near future. So software development methods would be different as well. Give me a second, guys. Sorry. So next thing that we need to do is um, in a scenario like where uh, uh, we get um, the information in this scenario in most of the time the uh, software development methods, okay, it's changing. Okay, but right now we have most of the time agile based software development. Okay, so you might have heard the term agile software development. Then there is terms like scrum, there is kanban. So there are like a lot of jargon words going on. So I would give you guys a small assignment. Uh, Not assignment, it should be like a, something that you guys need to research. Okay, you guys need to research on uh, what is a kanban, what is agile, and what is scrum. Okay, so you guys have more balanced a perfect idea when we look into a kanban board or a scrum board next week. So get an idea what is kanban, what is scrum, and what is agile. Okay, so look at those things. Also, the more traditional ones like what we have like waterfall method. Those are like very old, but you don't have like look into those things. We will be discussing those things anyhow. But look at the modern things like Kanban, Scrum, and Agile. Okay, what are those things? What they do have in common? What are the techniques that they are using? What sort of things that we are using in terms of software development? Okay, so as I was talking, so that need to be researched by you guys. Okay, as I was talking, we have several things that we'll be going through. That is, the first thing that we need to do is get all the stories in line. Okay, functional requirement, non-functional requirements, get everything in one document. Okay, so that document or that piece of information we call that um, SRS. Okay, uh, we will be using the SRS stands for software requirement specification. Okay, so that is like the source of truth what we will be developing. Okay, so SRS. So within the SRS, we contain most of the information with related to the functional, non-functional, and everything. So SRS is something we can share with the clients if they are like technical enough, but SRS document is more of a technical document when it is coming to application development. Okay, so if you're having if you're having very technical team like developers, QAs, and all those people involved, so they understand software requirement specification more thoroughly than other ones. Okay, so it will be easy to understand. It will be easy to the people who are working in software industry to get the information get the information like this in order to work. Okay, so software requirement specification, or we normally call it as the SRS. SRS is gonna come up with all these functional and non-functional requirements that we have within the application. So by looking at the SRS, what we'll do is we will then consider what need to be developed and what need to be prioritized. So for example, let's say we need to start developing, but we can't develop something that is depending on another thing. Okay, for example, we can't develop our application on a dependent basis. For real world examples, uh, think about uh, think about let's say login functionality. Okay, we are thinking about login functionality. So the login functionality is required. We need to able to log in. That means we need to give username and password, and we should be able to log into the system. But we can't do a user login and user authentication unless we set up security. Okay, so we need to do a security task, something like uh, setting up a security mechanism. There are like a lot of security mechanisms out there. What we need the best, we need to set up the security. We need to set up the user store. We need to set up the user permissions, roles, those kind of things. So in order to work with the login of our application, we need to first finalize the application. We need to finalize the application with um, the security infrastructure, basic security infrastructure. So we can't proceed login unless we do security first. So login is depending on another task, that we need to complete first. So whatever the mechanism that we are doing, whatever the software structure that we will be developing, we need to prioritize what tasks need to be done at first. So in this scenario, we will see all the dependencies. We have all the functional requirements, all the non-functional requirements with us. Now we need to sit down and prioritize what are the dependencies on each other and what are the tasks that we need to execute first in order to resolve the other things. So if we do not set up security, we can't implement login. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to come a security layer. But security layer might be depending on another task. We can't put security in place unless we select our database. So we need to have a user store where we're going to be storing the user credentials and information. So we need that in first. So we need to set up the database and everything. So the first, there'll be a point where we need to say, okay, these tasks are linked together or depending on each other. So this, at the end, we will come to a conclusion. In order to start all these things, we need to set up the project, and to set up the project, we need to start with this particular task. Okay, we have a task that we need to prioritize, and once we prioritize that, we can get that information. Okay, we need to prioritize a single task that would lead us to a place. Okay, this is the starting point. So there might be most of the time there is a possibility that we have multiple starting points. That means that there is not only one single point that we can start. We can start with multiple points. So for example, while the security layer is doing its job, we can work on search. So if there is no dependency on security and search, okay, let's assume that for now, there is no dependency on security and search. What we can easily do is we can easily say, okay, these two are two independent tasks. So we can make them in parallel if we have the resources. Okay, we can make this thing happen where we can make this task execute one after another. So we don't depend on any of these applications. Okay. So when you are looking at the requirements, when you are breaking down those things, you will automatically find what are the dependent tasks and what are the parallel tasks that we can do. Okay. So in order to get that kind of information, so you can't map those things out in your head, right? You can't put those things in a normal, in your head, and you can expect that to work with. Okay, so what you can do is um, you can use something like what we call a Gantt chart. Okay, so perhaps you guys have seen this kind of task breakdown and application breakdowns. So this is what we call a Gantt chart. Okay. So within a Gantt chart, we can see, okay, there are dependencies in within these tasks, and there are parallel things that we can do. And there are things that that can be implemented on later stage after one another. So if you look at this example, particular example that you see in here, so these three tasks are executing parallelly. These three tasks are executing parallelly. But on the top, on here, you guys can see the first task is done, then the second task is done, then the third task, and so on and so forth, like this. So these are the dependent tasks, and these are the each independent task, but all these tasks might be depending on this task that we have in the top. Okay, so by looking at these things, by plotting these against a Gantt chart, you guys can easily identify what are the dependencies and what are the things that are not dependent on each other, and what are the things that you can execute them. So Gantt chart is like de facto in terms of finding dependencies and all those things. And uh, you might find this really helpful in terms of developing application. But most of the time, Gantt chart are like nice way of representing dependencies and finding out. So where you would find such Gantt chart, where you can find, typically software project management tools like Jira and some other things like Asana. Oh, there are like a lot of softwares out there, but it's hard to miss a Gantt chart in any of the software development uh, applications. So you will find such and such dependencies and everything. Okay, so this is one way of finding the applications dependencies. Okay, so we have talked about dependencies in a nutshell. And another way of doing, I think close the window. I think no longer works. So another way of organizing our task is, okay, if we have all those dependencies, we know what should be prioritized, and what we will do is start working on those things. Okay, we'll start working on the task that we want to execute first. So we will be starting from the most prioritized task, and the tasks that need to be completed in order to other tasks to be starting. So we'll check both with those things. So we need a way to organize these tasks. Yes, we have tasks that we need to execute. We need some sort of way of representing whether what is the progress of this task, whether it is completed or not, and what is the status, what need to be happen in this task. That kind of information is vital when we are managing a project. Okay, so let's assume that we got a list of tasks. Okay, first thing is setting up the database, the second thing is setting up the server, third task is setting up the front end framework in this scenario. So we need to set up the database. We will create a task, and we'll create another task for setting up the backend. Same goes to the front end. So where do we create these kind of tasks? You can use some things like, if you are primitive enough, you can use sorry, you can use something like Excel. Okay, Excel is one of the ways that you can develop these kind of softwares. Yes. So you can use Excel to list all these tasks downs, and you will get all the information. They are like, okay, these are the 100 tasks that we will be working on. But when it is coming to tracking these, tracking the progress and everything, and what are the things that we have changed, it's going to be a nightmare to handle in such document. So what we will do is we will use something like uh, project management software like this. Okay, this is one of the softwares that is available for free. Okay, there are like other professional softwares, like one of the most uh, one of the most used industry-wide used software is like Jira. You might have heard about it. So for software project management, but these tools have the similar functionality. So you can improvise those things by looking at those. Okay, so there are like if you go to Trello.com, and you will get a workspace. So this is a free environment, and you guys can even join this workspace and work on this. But let me give you like the um, basic setup on these things, and you guys can understand what's going on in here and what sort of things that you would be expecting within the application itself. So we have things like boards. Okay, sometimes we call these things like projects. So whatever the name that you like to give, but it is like a central point of where all these items, where all these tasks are going to be listed out. Okay, so in Trello, we call this a board, but in Jira, you might call this a project or something similar. Okay, so let's create a board in Jira, sorry, in Trello. In boards, you can go to um, and you can select a template, something like that you would see in here, or you can create a new board um, out from the scratch. But I would use a simple project board, so it creates some default things that I might find useful. So I create a simple board, and you guys would see something like this. Okay, so I can name the project, or I can, first of all, they will give like, okay, this is the template. Would you like to create board from this template? Yes, I can go ahead. But if you don't like, you can go back and select another template. This is like Kanban, okay? And if you do not like any of these things, they are like project management things, okay? So these are like the project management tasks, if you are project manager sort of thing. So you have these kind of information, and there are like remote team. These are like not like standard ones, but you can look in different aspects. You can customize these board in your requirement. Okay, first thing, if you go to the create a new board, then you will be like having like a default thing like a board title and the workspace and everything. I can create a board title and go ahead, but I would use something like a simple project setup. Okay, and I will create a board from this template. I need to give a name. Okay, I will give the same name of the project, Bloom Zoo. Okay, I think I have something like this. So I will call it Bloom Zoo 2. Okay, and keep the cards, keep the template cards. These are like cards that we're going to be discussing. We'll just we'll just remove those things, so we have like a clean state of this. Okay, so what I'll do is I will share this one, so you guys can even join. Okay, other people can join this. um, Where can I find the, okay, there's a share button. Uh, Create a shareable link and join as a member. So you will be able to join. I'll share this in the WhatsApp group so you guys are interested in, and if you want to look into this, have a look around this. Project management. Oops. But I did share, link copied. Okay. So you guys can even join the board. So most of the time, this is going to be like within an organization. This is going to be a private board. Okay, not everybody can join to this board and see what's going on and everything. But basically, this is going to be like the simplest form of how we can manage our tasks. So brainstorming, these are like, as I mentioned, these are like template. You don't have to follow these things exactly within your organization or within your project. Based on your preference, you can add more swim lanes in here. You guys can see add another list. We call these things swim lanes since they are separated lanes that you can work on. Even if you have another sort of swim lane, for example, I want a swim lane called testing. And what I can do is I can put that swim lane in between doing and testing and that. Okay, so we have this kind of setup. So as I mentioned, this might be different. All the process that even we talked to today is completely customizable. I'm talking in general, like most of the time this happens. Okay, it's not the always. It is not like the bound to be way, but it is like the most of the time. This is the way that it's going to happen. Okay. So we have this as a board. What we'll do is we will add cards. Okay, in this scenario, card adding is inserting functional requirements and non-functional requirements, the task that we need to do. So I will add a card and I'll give a card. I'll add a template setup security. Okay, so this is uh, one of the tasks that we need to do. Is can be brainstorming. That means we are still discussing. And if I click on this task, okay, I can give more information. Okay, we need to set up the security for the application using O2. Is something like that. A more descriptive way, more descriptive information that would make whoever reading this task make more easy to understand. And there are like a lot of things that we can do. I can have more subtasks assigned to it. It's gonna be like setup security, maybe like a huge task. So I can have a checklist of what are the things that I need to do. Okay, I can do is set up database for the checklist. Okay, I will create a checklist on this, set up the database, and within that checklist, I need to say set up user table and set up roles table and such and such. Okay, I can have another. So this is one type of thing that we need to do, set up database. I can have another checklist in implement or to protocol. Okay, so if I say implement of auth protocol, set up password password set up password flow, set up um, open endpoints, set up, uh, what else? Assume token endpoints, the list goes on. So within this task, we can have subtask. Most of the time, we can assign members to this. You guys can see. Okay, set up, use a table, right? What is this table? Table. So setting the user table, that might be someone else to work, since I'm in the in my trial version. I can't do these task-wise setup, but I can do, sorry, subtask-wise setup. Okay, since I'm in trial, but if you have purchased the real one, you will able to set up all the due dates and everything by the subtask. But I can set up the setup security section to a member. Okay, so if I have like few members that who is within my workspace, I can just simply add them. So the people who have been assigned to this is the person who is responsible for these things, and there is like so many things that we can customize in this scenario. And um, so I am a member of this, so that I should be responsible for this. I can assign other more people. Then I can assign labels, so I can identify what sort of things that is need to be done. Label give different meaning on different contexts. So if I have to understand this is a feature, then I can have the green label. And there can be new things, like if it is related to database, I can have a database label. That's kind of things. The list goes on. You can name what you can have different labels, so you can, it's like you can categorize those things based on what we have. And we have checklist. We talked about checklist. We have dates when this should be completed and by whom, and any attachment, any screen, so any screenshots of those kind of things. And we can have a cover, which will be like something to make it fancy. If you have something like that, attachment, or like some sort of this kind of picture, so we know for sure that is making more sense. But is that optional? That is completely optional. um, that's, you don't need to like set up at all. Okay. And custom fields, this is not also available since I am free. Maybe if I have a version, I can have more of these things, like what we have in here. Then there are, these things are like not that important, but the share, archive, these things are uh, could be used something for application. So if I if I have this card or title within the brainstorm session, I can move once it is selected for doing. I can move it to do, and we will be going to doing, testing, and everything on the Streamlabs. So we'll discuss those things in upcoming lectures, how we can cover these things, how we gonna select things. I mean, within a brainstorm, we have only one in here, right? But if we have 10, how we gonna select, how we can do it to do, and how we gonna move these things into doing and everything. So we'll take those challenges in upcoming lectures. By far, any questions, guys, that I need to answer? Anything that you guys find I help with? Okay.